Welcome to 30 Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Ooh, my voice does not sound great. Alright, well, either way, I was into a typical episode last week, and then I had this idea, this story that I thought about. And it's one of those things that comes up every once in a while, where it's like the position of Star Wars in pop culture, the importance of it in pop culture as a whole, but its status and all of that. Here's the thing, though: Star Wars occupies a really weird spot in pop culture, and I think that the issue is that there are a few things I want to talk about in this episode. I'm trying to intro it organically. I'm probably just gonna, jump right in though. Number one, I had this idea. I tweeted about it the other day. I was trying to be more, lofty, but let's just jump right in. The other day I had this idea. I tweeted about it. An interesting hypothesis I had about Star Wars. Had episode 4 come out this year, or 2019, when The Rise of Skywalker came out, would the movie have been as beloved? Number one, we're gonna assume for the sake of this, the cast stays the same. We're gonna scale everything forward a little bit. So Harrison Ford is still on the lead, is still Han Solo. Carrie Fisher is still Leia. Everyone's the same. For the original movie, they're still here for this. The CGI has been updated where it is the current quality of CGI that we would expect in a movie. And for the sake of this, let's say it's the theatrical cut that came out in 1978, not the specialized editions that featured extended scenes and updated CGI. So, you don't get that weird Jabba scene or anything like that. Now, is the movie as well received? I would maintain that it is not, and here's why. Number one, the issue is, if you look at what the response was to Star Wars and to Marvel now and to DC to an extent, female-led movies and books and all of that stuff get very poorly received. And it's not by critics or by audiences at large, it's by the internet, by people who have YouTube channels and these large platforms to go out there and spew their nonsense. And the thing is, they're very good at looking for subtext that isn't always there. So, I remember when, when Toy Story 4 came out, there was people who looked at, who looked at when the little girl, the little white girl, gave away the doll, and didn't want it, and the little black girl thought it was perfect. They thought that was a race thing. It's not so much a race thing. I think you're looking too far into it, but this is a subset of the internet that will look into that deeply, purely to get that response. They'll look for the subtext beneath the subtext, and that's what's important to them, is finding that subtext beneath the subtext. And if you can bring it out to light, it's meant to, the deeper it is, and the more you gotta think about it to get to that point, the more it helps their cause, that it's some kind of cultural brainwashing or conditioning. I'm gonna apologize about my voice and all of that. I'm sick currently. And if you look at it, that's what happens a lot. Now, Star Wars, you don't have to look as deeply at to see it's got what would be considered a anti-male agenda, which would get this movie lambasted. There'd be YouTube videos up the wazoo. Do you remember Joey Saladino, the piss-drinking Nazi, going on the tirade about the deleted scene from Captain Marvel where they do an homage to Terminator 2, and it's like, oh my god, it's a woman doing it now, so it's bad. It's like, no, it's like, you guys don't, understand that's homage to Terminator 2, and the scene wasn't in the movie, and it's like, in the same breath, you can say that's bad, that she's dealing with harassment in that way, and then Superman in Man of Steel is completely in the right to destroy the man's truck, for witnessing sexual harassment of the waitress, and I think that it's stupid, but that would have happened 100% with Star Wars, A New Hope. If it came out today, we would have We would Leia would not be a beloved character, and I think the reason why Leia is a beloved character is because she was liked by these people when they were younger, and she kind of gets grandfathered in, because if you take what she does and put it down on paper, it would get her the same response that Holdo got for what she does. She withstands interrogation at the hands of an interrogation droid. She stands up to Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin. She is held captive, and then when she's found, immediately, she takes control of the rescue and takes over everything that's going on from there, from Luke and Han. Once they escape, she's the one who tells them that they're being tracked, and they let them escape so they can check them back to the Rebel base. And it's like, these are all things that, if Holdo did it, if Rose did it, if Rey did it, they would have been completely attacked for. And you look at what happens in the later movies. It's like, the one that really comes to mind is her, and then her relationship with Lando in Episode 5 would also have been attacked if it came out today. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't alive in the 70s and the 80s, so I can't say what the response was at the time to that. But if these movies came out today, they would have been, not well received. Because, the same thing that happened, as much as we talk about how The Force Awakens is the same movie as A New Hope, it's kind of the same thing with The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, where you have two plots, one of which is the main Jedi going to train with an older master, and then the other one is it's them slowly meandering through space. They can't use the hyperdrive to escape the Empire, and it's a slow speed chase through space, and they're trying to escape the Empire. Then they eventually get pinned down, and they got to escape. It's the exact same movie. It's just they changed the planets, they changed the characters, and everything's slightly different. Now, again, this did actually happen with Empire Strikes Back when it came out, but it's a similar thing. Now, what was the other thing I want to talk about with this? The other thing about Star Wars is it wouldn't be a cultural icon if it came out today rather than came out in 1978. And here's why. In 1978, there were no movies that occupied the same demographic space as Star Wars. Star Wars is very unique in that you can go with a child and with an adult to see the movie, and both would be entertained. And to this day, you can still do that. You can go to see Star Wars as an adult, and I was entertained when I saw The Rise of Skywalker. If I didn't like the movie, I still, had fun in the theater. I was very hyped for The Force Awakens, and I didn't clap during The Force Awakens, but if something felt right, seeing that opening crawl again, seeing the Star Wars logo come on, and the opening crawl, Episode 7, The Force Awakens, it felt like there was something in there from my childhood that hadn't been there in a while, and that's going to happen. But the thing is, that's every movie now does that. Be it Aladdin, be it one of the most fun experiences I've had in a movie theater in recent history was for Avengers Endgame, which is going to go up with The Force Awakens, as I'm not going to forget what that theater experience was like, and Creed, and all of these movies designed to have mass market appeal, and not appeal to one specific demographic. So if Star Wars came out today, exactly the same movie, it would not have been well received, because the plot is not great. It's a very, The reason why Star Wars got what it is because it was a family-friendly plot that everyone kind of liked. It was very not non-confrontational, non-argumentative. There's a word I'm looking for that I guess can't think right now. So, inoffensive. That was what I'm looking for. Inoffensive. Perfectly inoffensive plot. At the end of the day, that's what matters. It matters getting the asses in the seats, for lack of a better word. And it worked then because there wasn't anything else occupying that space. And since then, we've gotten Jurassic Park and we have Jurassic World now. We've gotten the Marvel movies coming out every 6 months, and those are the perfect example of the cultural space that Star Wars once occupied. Inoffensive, and the parents love it, kids love it, teenagers love it, older people love it. People who like an action movie will go and see that because it's a relatively good action movie that is going to. It's like you're going to go in and you're going to not feel bad about wasting that 2 hours, and that was what the feeling was for Star Wars. And that's what the problem was. And if it came out today, it would be one of any number of movies. It'd be like it's good, but it's not great. And this is coming from a Star Wars fan. This is coming from someone who was very deep into the extended universe back in the mid 2000s when I was an active fiction reader. I've gone back and I've started reading the new expanded universe. I love Alphabet Squadron. I didn't really love Thrawn Alliances, but I liked the first Thrawn book. I haven't read the next one yet. I just reread Heir to the Jedi, which, by the way, could kind of be seamlessly cut into the current canon with very minimal adjustments, and I don't know why they don't do that. But the point I'm trying to make is we deify Star Wars as this great franchise, and what Star Wars is in reality is it's a franchise that came about at the right time. And whatever franchise figured out and cracked that code in that time that said, hey, we can make more money if we appeal to more than one demographic, whichever franchise did that would be the Star Wars. If in 1978 DC decided to make a Justice League universe in the way and do that and keep the quality up the way Star Wars did, then maybe that would be the one we talk about now. With 30 years later, we're rebooting it. If they did the Infinity Saga, which I know they couldn't have done because the Infinity Gauntlet didn't come out in 1978, but if they did that back in 1978 through the end, we'd be talking about that now. It's just a matter of what happened at that time and why that time mattered. There's like context for these things. And the other thing that Star Wars did well is merchandising, because I hate saying this, but everything Star Wars is just a lengthy toy commercial. And if you don't think it is, you're kidding yourself. The point of Star Wars is not to get you the movie. Like, when Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars, they weren't like, oh, we're going to pay $4 billion, we're going to make all that back in the box office, and that's it. No, they bought the merchandising rights. They bought the rights to the books, the video games, the toys, the t-shirts, putting fucking Darth Vader on anything they wanted, putting him in the theme parks. That's what they bought the rights to. And it was a completely good, worth it transaction, because in the box office alone they made back the money, let alone everything else that they're going to get money on for the rest of eternity. Because people can continually buy Star Wars toys. And that's what the whole thing came down to, is they want, the merchandising rights. There's a reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so successful, is because they know how to merchandise those movies, because they don't just rely on the box office from it. And that's what Star Wars needs to, that's what Star Wars does too. So, I think we're going to wrap up there for today. I think I've covered enough of Star Wars. I want to talk a little bit about, I'll touch on it briefly. It's one of the things I noticed recently. Rey was called a Mary Sue a lot. And the reason that it bothers me, and I hate whenever people say, oh, well, there's a male version of a Mary Sue, it's called a Gary Stu. It's like, no. But here's the thing. Here's the difference between a Gary Stu and a Mary Sue. Is that it is, if you have a character who is a guy and is the chosen one, and in his first appearance is infallible, like Luke Skywalker, like Neo, like any number of other characters, the assumption is something happened off camera before we got to that point where they have training. And it's understandable. Like when we meet Jango Fett, and Boba Fett, we don't assume that he is just like that he got his power and he's just perfect in every way and he didn't earn it. We assume he's had years of training. Now we meet Rey. This is something that someone pointed out with The Mandalorian episode 3, where we go to that small little village and he meets that woman, and the woman can shoot a gun. She's the only one who can shoot a gun. People are like, oh, she's the only one who can shoot a gun. That's propaganda. It's like, well, no. It's Star Wars, and Star Wars has always been like in the Old West, where guns are, like the language of the era. But the bigger issue is, I don't think that, like, you don't get that assumption that it's happened before. For a female character, we look to character development that happened on screen in this moment. For a male character, we don't do that. So that's why when Wonder Woman goes out of its way to show that she's training, it kind of absolves from that belief. That said, we don't need to see Superman when Superman appears on Supergirl, we don't need to see him going through the training to become Superman. And it's like you can gloss over a good amount of backstory for a male character you can't for a female character. And and a lot of times, the only times you really need to do it is if something very, very specific, like on Arrow, when they do a flashback, and whatever they need that episode, that one very specific skill that he needs that episode, they'll flash back to his time on Lian Yu. And they don't, like, it's just so ridiculously done that we can't just assume that a female character has had training off screen, but we can assume it for a male character. And that's the fundamental difference between Mary Sue and not. And it's something that doesn't get brought up enough, is that there's a difference. There is a key difference, and there's a massive difference between a male character's treatment and a female character's treatment. So now we'll wrap up for today. We'll be back with another episode later this week. Hopefully my voice comes back. I think I'm off Thursday. I don't know. We'll be back with another episode later this week. Until then, have a great rest of your week.